Greetings, folks. Aiden here, developer evangelist at Xsolla. Today, we're going to walk through how you can take the Xsolla SDK and integrate it into a Unity project targeting PC. Let's make sure you're set up and ready to follow along. We'll be working with Unity Engine version 6.3 LTS. If you're on a different version, there may be some slight differences, but the integration steps will be the same. Ideally, you have a project in mind to test out the integration. We'll be using the Unity 2D game kit for this walkthrough. Once you have your project set up, make sure that you have the Unity in-app purchase package configured. Finally, you'll need to sign up for an Xsolla Publisher account in order to test the integration. We'll cover everything you need to do inside the Publisher account for this walkthrough. However, we won't be going through account creation, so be sure to have that ready. This walkthrough will primarily benefit those looking to target off-platform PC distribution and Epic Games Store with dual billing. For testing and release, you'll want to set up a web shop and/or Xsolla Game Launcher with your Publisher account. For this guide, you'll be able to follow along without them. Let's take a quick look at what we're actually building here so that you can see where we're headed. We're inside the Unity 2D Game Kit demo, and the scenario is very simple. Once the player dies, we're presented with a pop-up. They have the opportunity to respawn as normal, or make a purchase for a full health restoration and respawn from the last checkpoint. This is a classic impulse buy moment and a perfect fit for our goals. Once the player initiates the purchase, the browser opens PayStation, allowing the user to complete their purchase. Once they've completed their purchase, we can return to the game. Here we can see the player has respawned and has full health to continue playing. Whether you're following along with this video or going deeper afterwards, there are 3 places I want you to know about. Links will be available in the description below. The Xsolla SDK documentation can be found at developers.xsolla.com/SDK. From here, you can find guides for creating your publisher account and other integration flows. This is also where you'll find the link to our interactive demo, the SDK Explorer. SDK Explorer is a playable demo of the SDK with real-time expandable logs and filters. You can walk through the 4 steps of monetization with Xsolla by testing purchases in-game, or try to remain free-to-play as you expand your pizza shop. This is interactable documentation at its finest. A final callout will be the integration widget we'll be making regular use of for this video. You can find the widget in the sidebar of the SDK documentation. This is your Give Me the Code tool. The widget provides the Git URL for the Xsolla package import and step-by-step code snippets for the integration. To summarize, SDK Explorer is the playable demo, integration widget is the code generator. Both cover the same 4 steps, but they serve different needs. To get started, let's head over to the SDK documentation. From here, we'll check out the sidebar and click on Integration. This is where you can find the integration widget. Here, you'll see all the code that we'll be using laid out in the 4 steps: authenticate, load catalog, purchase product, and finalize purchase. We'll be starting with the authenticate step, but before that, we need to import the SDK. In order to import the SDK, we can grab the GitHub link here and head over to Unity to import it through the package manager. Back in Unity, select Window, Package Management, Package Manager. From here, you can click the plus on the top left to add a new package, install package from Git URL, and go ahead and paste in that link. Click Install. Once the package has been installed, now we're ready to get started. Let's get started by setting our scene up. We'll create an empty game object called Xsolla PlayStation and move that under our system label. Select the game object, add component, new script, and let's call it Xsolla PlayStation. Create and add. Once our script's been created, we can double click to open our editor. Let's get started with our first step, authentication. Once the script has been created, we can go ahead and double click, take us to the editor, where we have our blank script ready to go. To get started, we'll want to go back to the integration widget and grab our first bit of code from there. We'll copy the code shown here and paste it into the script we just created. Back in our editor, we can select all, paste, and back at the top, let's start by renaming this to the proper script, Xsolla PlayStation. You'll notice in the current state that our IDE is letting us know that there's an error due to an unfulfilled contract with the interface here. One thing to remember is that the integration widget walks through steps individually, which means some functions will not be included in the code that we've copied over. In this case, I can generate those missing functions as placeholders. Here, you can see the 3 functions that have been generated to fulfill the contract. Note the comment at the bottom reminding us that we'll be filling out these functions in the purchase and finalize purchase steps. You'll note at the top of the code in our settings that we have a project ID and a login ID being referenced here. These are for the sample project and can be used as a quick test if needed. But to continue, we'll have to go to our publisher account and set up our project and login project IDs. Once you're inside your publisher account, click Create Project on the sidebar. Give our project a name, select the platform. For this demo, we'll set it up to say that it has in-game transactions, the concept stage, it's an adventure game, that Unity is our game engine. Select Create Project. Once the project's been created, you'll see that we now have our project ID available. There's one more thing that we should take care of while we're in our publisher account. We'll head over to the sidebar and select Players, Login, New Login Project, Create Standard Login Project. From here, we can select Classic Login, hit Configure for testing. This gives us the opportunity to test our login widget. However, for the demo, we can skip this step. Next, we'll want to select Login API Integration and make sure that we have Login with Device ID enabled. This is not the standard login flow for PC, but for the sake of this demo, it gets us up and running the fastest. We can now go back and rename our login project to something that we can recognize. We return to our dashboard. Now we can see that we have access to our login ID. With the login ID and project ID, we can now handle our authentication properly. Back in the editor, we can now input our project ID and our login ID. And with that, we're ready to test and verify our authentication. Returning to Unity, we can run the project and check our logs to see if the project's authentication has succeeded. With that, we've successfully initialized and authenticated our project. Scrolling to the bottom, we can now see that we also retrieved our product successfully, even though there's none. The next step will be going into loading our catalog so that we see this properly. Now we're ready to move on to step 2, loading the catalog. For this example, we're going with manual entry because we're starting from a simple project and we only need one item. Depending on your situation, whether you're importing an existing catalog, starting from scratch, or migrating from somewhere else, this is a great moment to check the documentation because all the options are clearly laid out. Back in our publisher account under our project, let's hit the sidebar and select Item Catalog, All Items. From here, we can select Create Manually, create a virtual item. Our SKU is going to map to our item ID in game, so let's make sure we remember that. This will be full-health, and the item name will be full health. This will be an item priced in real currency. Select Set Up Prices, and we'll set this to $1.99. Click Apply. From here, remember to return to the top and select Unavailable at the top right. Make sure to click Available here. Without doing this, the item does not get registered to the catalog and will not be live in your game. This means we won't be able to test the item, so make sure to set it to Available. Scroll back to the bottom and click Create Item. With our new item created, we can return to the integration widget and take a look at the Load Catalog step. Back in the integration widget, let's select Load Catalog. Scrolling down, we'll see that there are 2 sections of code that we have to add here. The first is to set up the configuration builder. We'll be adding the project that we just created. Instead of these tickets, we'll be using full-health as our product. The second section gets added to our onInitialize call. This loop will allow us to grab the ID, title, price, and currency from our items so that we could use them later on if we would like. For now, Let's copy the configuration builder and take that into the editor. Back in our editor, you can see that we have the configuration builder here and the comment saying that we will add this in the load catalog step. So go ahead and copy and replace, and then we'll change this to our full health item. We can then remove these other two items. We just need the one here. Back in our integration widget, we can copy the for each loop and add it to our onInitialized function. This step is not required to verify that our catalog has loaded, but it's convenient if you would like to experiment with pulling the data out of the catalog so that you can display it later for the user. Back in our editor, we can find our onInitialize function and paste that in. With that, we're ready to test our catalog. Back in Unity, we can run the project and check our logs to see if we've successfully loaded our catalog. And with that, we have successfully loaded our full health item into the catalog. Now we're ready to set up our purchase. Moving on to step 3, we'll be setting up the purchase. Let's head back to the integration widget to check out what we'll be doing next. Let's select purchase product. And from here, we can see that we're going to be setting up our purchase method and adding some logging just in case the purchase fails. Let's get these copied and hop back into our editor. With these copied in, let's change our item to be the full health item that we created. You'll notice in our on purchase failed functions that we have a comment where you can set up how you handle your user cancellation. With our purchase SKU function set up, now all we have to do is wire that in to our UI. A quick note about the PC purchase UX flow. When this function fires, our configuration will have the user's default browser launch with PayStation to complete the checkout. This is a standard purchase flow for PC users. While the integration widget gives you everything you need to functionally handle the purchase step, it's up to you to decide how to trigger the purchase within your game logic. Let's walk through the changes that we've made for this project. First, we've set up our class with the singleton pattern. This is a quick and simple way to get our class up and running and accessible from any script in our project. Also, rather than hard coding our product ID, we've set it up so that it can be dynamic. This way, it can be used for any product that we have in our catalog. There are many other implementation patterns that may be more appropriate for your final release. Finally, we've added a helper function to allow us to get real-time pricing from the catalog and return it to the UI. That means our pop-up always shows the current price from the publisher account. Once updated in the publisher account, the in-game price will reflect it the next time the catalog loads. Jumping into our Buy Health UI class, we've set it up so that the button click will trigger the purchase. While hard-coded here, the product ID could easily be pulled from something like a scriptable object or another form of game data. We've also set up a coroutine to update the price text based upon that get product price that we set up earlier. With those changes out of the way, let's hop back into Unity and test our purchase flow. Back in Unity, we've run our project, and once the player dies, we should have that UI pop up, giving us the opportunity to purchase the full health for $1.99. As soon as we click the button, our default browser opens up with PayStation ready to complete the purchase. Since we're in sandbox mode, we have access to test cards that we can input to confirm our purchase. Once the purchase is complete, we can head back into Unity and check the logs to confirm the purchase. And there you have it, purchase finished, showing up in our logs. At this point, nothing has actually happened in game yet, because we haven't finished implementing our final step. Let's head back to the integration widget to work on finalize purchase. Back in the integration widget, let's select finalize purchase. Before we get into the final implementation, it's worth understanding the code that's here and what we'll actually be using. Server-side validation can be handled via webhooks or the Xsolla Events API. This allows things to happen asynchronously. Unity IAP is told the purchase is pending, and your code pulls an event queue waiting for external confirmation. When that confirmation arrives, the confirm pending purchase function fires, marks the purchase complete, and consumes it. For this demo, we're going to be using client-side validation, which skips all of that process. We confirm the purchase directly within the client the moment the transaction succeeds. There's no waiting, no polling, no pending state. We just complete and consume the purchase immediately in the success loop. Knowing this upfront is going to make the code much easier to follow. Let's go ahead and copy this function and head back into the editor. Back in our editor, we've made a couple of quick changes to the code that we copied over. First is that we've commented out the code related to server-side validation. Second, we've bypassed that to complete the purchase directly once successful. The final thing is to implement our game logic for the success state. For the 2D game kit demo that we're working with, we'll want to destroy the UI once the purchase is complete, find the player, have them respawn, and reset their health. While the game logic here will differ from game to game, the primary thing to remember is that this success branch is where you'll want to start triggering the logic for your confirmed purchase. With everything set up, it's finally time to validate our entire purchase flow. Back to Unity, let's trigger this one more time. Once the player dies, we'll get our pop-up, and we have the opportunity to purchase our item for $1.99. Once we click, we'll be taken to our browser. Once in our browser, we can go ahead and confirm the purchase. With our purchase complete, we can hop back over to Unity. And there you have it. Our player respawned with full health, and we're able to continue playing. With that, we've completed our Xsolla SDK integration for our Unity PC project. Thank you for following along. We hope you found this video helpful on your path to release.